The topic tonight is an interesting one, and we will see how I do with it. I've got this moderately planned, so there's room for greatness and room for disaster. So bear with me. The title of the talk is The Slow Boat. And I thought of this because of, actually go ahead and bring that out for me now, please, Zelda. This is a gift that one of the students brought in this morning. We've been really blessed with quite an amazing haul of wonderful presents from some students who've been practicing for a long time. Way too many cookies and things to eat, but this is one of the more interesting ones that I got. So this is like a ceramic boat taped shaped thing that we're using as a pot. She brought it in with these nice plants on it. And I was looking at this thing and I'm like, oh, that's a really nice boat. And this is all I wanted. You can take it back, Zelda. Thank you. And I thought of, for some reason, probably because it was after Tai Chi, I was thinking of like the slow boat, and I was thinking of the slow bus, which is kind of like I guess it's a derogatory term. It's something that my Sifu used to say all the time. I haven't heard him say it in a while, but it's like if you're describing yourself in learning Tai Chi or learning martial arts, you might describe yourself as being on the slow bus, as in, I'm not feeling super skillful and fast at it. But I thought the slow bus is like, has a negative connotation to it. And partly because being on the bus just in general has a negative connotation. I don't know about you guys, but I have never really had an amazing time on a bus. Train is okay. I like being on a boat much better. I've also had terrible times on the boat, but usually I have a better time on the boat. So I thought, like, being on the slow bus, that's not really where we want to be. Being on the slow boat, that's nice. Because very seldom are you like forced to be on a boat, especially like on your daily commute, the way that you might be on the bus. The boat is like you're enjoying it. So if you're on a slow boat, this is what I'm going to use as a euphemism for basically just like taking your time and enjoying it. And I highly encourage you to be on the slow boat because it's not super stressful. This is distinct from being on the fast boat where it's like, I'm really interested in getting from A to B as fast as I possibly can. And this is, if you're on a speedboat and you're crashing into waves, it can be quite stressful. But if you're just on like a lazy boat or you're on a sailboat, you're just kind of going with the flow of things and enjoying yourself. This is the way that our practice should be. This is the way especially that Tai Chi and for sure our meditation practice should be. If you feel stressed, like I've got to get it now, then you're not going to enjoy being on the slow boat. And you will constantly feel like you are inferior. You're going to be comparing yourself to everybody else, and you'll be like, probably like I have felt through most of my life driving, where I'm like, if I'm not driving faster than all the other cars on the street, I'm losing the race that is driving. It's not a particularly safe way to drive, and I prefer more recently, way more enjoyable is just choose a lane and stay in it. And if your lane goes fast, you go fast. If your lane goes slow, you go slow. And you're still going to get to where you're going in approximately the same amount of time, but your journey there can be much more enjoyable, especially if you've got one of those cars that has at least a little bit of cruise control and like lane assist. You can just put it on and then you can like at least sneak some peeks out. Anybody see the sky this afternoon? It was absolutely beautiful. And I was on the 405, which mostly sucks, but I was also sneaking peeks out the window at this beautiful sunset, and there was like this blanket of clouds and the sun was peeking through, beautiful colors, looked so cool. And I thought, technology, this is it. And I was in one lane the whole time, really nice. So that's the slow boat. This reminded me of a couple of other things. One of my favorite metaphors I stole from one of the books that we have in the dojo, and it is Chuang Tzu. And we have, I think, two versions of the book, but it's the writings of Chuang Tzu. And he's a fairly well-known Taoist philosopher from many years ago, hundreds of years ago. He was, I think, just after Lao Tzu, who wrote the Tao Te Ching, which is the most commonly known, most famous Taoist text. And Chuang Tzu likes this idea of, if you are in a boat and your boat crashes into somebody else's boat, or more likely their boat crashes into yours, how do you respond? You instantly get angry. And it's not even something that you take time and think about it like, I should be angry about this. It's like somebody else's boat crashes into your boat and you instinctively, automatically get like angry, you get tense. And part of it is, there's danger there, obviously. If it crashes hard and fast into your boat, you might sink. But most of it is just like annoyance. Let's say that you're just in a canoe and it's another canoe that crashes into you and it just barely kind of bounces off of you. Your instinct is to look over and yell at this other idiot who crashed their canoe into your canoe. But suppose that as you're just taking your leisurely canoe down the river, this other boat crashes into you. You look over, you're ready to yell at them, and you notice that that boat is totally empty. That totally changes your experience of that moment, because it's stupid to yell at an empty boat. It serves absolutely no purpose. And you would likely, in that scenario, feel kind of silly about the fact that you were about to yell at that empty boat. And so then you laugh at yourself and you just continue down the river and you're back instantly to just, I'm enjoying this trip. And this is how your slow boat journey will go, is you'll be just enjoying yourself on your journey. Something will bump into you and annoy you and try to knock you off of your path of enjoyment, and you will instinctively try to get angry, yell at them, whatever. That upset will be instantly diffused if you think of it like that's an empty boat. The reason that we get angry and we hold on to it is ego. The ego is attached to things being a certain way. It's attached to this boat ride going exactly the way that I want it to go. It's attached to your drive from A to B going exactly the way that you want to go. I'll tell you another story about me driving. Yesterday, this was yesterday, right? Maybe 2 days ago? I'm pretty sure it was yesterday. No, it was 2 days ago. 2 days ago, because I was late for class because of this incident. I was on my way back home, and they're doing this crazy construction on Venice Boulevard. They're completely repaving it. And so everything for like a couple blocks around everywhere is just a mess. And you can't actually, during a certain time of day, get on or cross Venice. So I ended up having to do this crazy like loop around. And I found myself like a solid 7 minutes running later than I'm used to. And I'm starting to think, I'm hungry. I need lunch in me now. So I start driving a little bit more erratically, a little bit less safely, with less mindfulness. And at some point, I'm in like this back alley to try to get around all this traffic. And somebody has left a bag full of something in the street, and I think I end up having to run over it to avoid like a person who's walking across the street. And I hear this loud wham, and I think, I don't know what that was, but I just keep driving. I get home, I eat lunch, I come back out a couple of hours later, and I see that my tire is flat. Not like kind of flat, my rim is on the ground. And I don't notice this actually until I drive out of my driveway and I realize that my car's not driving the way that I'm used to it driving. So I look at it, I think this is not good. So then I back into the driveway. I have to get an Uber over to the dojo, and it's a whole fiasco, and I'm 5 whole minutes late for class. But this is the kind of thing that awaits us on our otherwise perfectly wonderful, enjoyable, leisurely journey, is these little annoyances. And I'll tell you that there were moments during that where I was really veering in the direction of pissed. Like, what did this idiot put a bag of nails in the middle of the street for? I found a nail in my wheel. That's how it got flat. And all the other reasons. How come they're doing this? Don't they know that I'm trying to drive down Venice Boulevard today? How can they be doing construction today? How inconsiderate. And at some point, I had to just laugh at myself and realize this is just one of those things, a bag of nails in the middle of the road, construction. And it's like stuff is going to happen. And if you laugh at yourself, then you can shake it off, and then you're back to it. And then I had a reasonably enjoyable Uber over to the dojo, and classes for the rest of the day were fine. But as long as you are in your boat, it's a guarantee that you're going to run into something. Maybe it's a rock, maybe it's another boat, maybe it's an unexpected, bend in the river, whatever it is. It's going to happen. And that unexpected kind of surprise can be enough, if we have a certain kind of attitude, to completely throw us off and make it totally unenjoyable. So this relates to the general mindset of our practice, and it relates to the internal challenge of the week. The challenge of the week is to write the story of your life in an empowering way. And I'll tell you, it would be quite difficult to write the story of getting a flat tire and having to be a few minutes late to class, to put that in an empowering way. Yet, I was able to do it by simply saying to myself, well, that's just one of those things that happens, and as long as I'm able to take it in stride and get to class without being super late and enjoy the rest of the day, then it's success. That's something that I can kind of enjoy the experience of, because it's not a complete disaster. I can choose to make it a complete disaster, or I can choose to make it just feel like a hiccup, a bump in the road, a bend in the river, and then we're right back to it. So that is an example of an empowering context. The story of your life written in an empowering way doesn't sound like, I go to Kung Fu every day and I'm terrible at it. I can't kick as high as everybody else, and I always lose at sparring, and whenever we grapple, they tap me, and I'm just bad at it. That some of that might be factually accurate. You might get tapped literally every time you grapple with somebody. But there is a difference between seeing it that way and seeing it like, I show up every week, several times a week. That is success in and of itself. I show up, and when I get tapped, I learn from it. I learn the mistakes that I made. I learn how to make it better next time. When my partner beats me, I can either take that like, this is bad and I'm losing and I'm bad at it and I'm failing, or I can take it like, this is something for me to learn from in this moment. You can go ahead and get a drink of water if you need to. All right, you're good. Don't die on me. And in the moment, literally, when somebody taps you, that's the possibility that's there for you. You can either get upset, or you can recognize, hey, my partner did something great. Hey, that's something for me to learn from. My partner's obviously got something that I can improve in myself that they're doing right. So having that mindset allows us to be more free-flowing and relaxed. It allows us to be more creative. It allows us to be more in the present and just enjoy your practice. So I'm going to bring this to one of my favorite things to reference, which is the worst horse. I also thought I've been watching this show on Apple TV called Slow Horses, which is really good. It's kind of like this. Slow Horses. I'm not going to spoil anything, but if you enjoy like spy thriller type shows, you'll enjoy this show. It's like the ragtag group of spies that didn't quite make it at MI6 in the UK, and they're like kind of forced to be in this kind of out in the boonies part of London where they're not really in the midst of the real action, and they're kind of saddled with these unexciting, less important missions and tasks that end up kind of being important. They end up getting the job done, even though they're the slow horses. They're on the slow bus. This is the 4 different kinds of horses. And so this is from Zen Mind, Beginner's Mind, wonderful book. If you haven't read it yet, get it. This is the chapter called The Marrow of Zen. And so this reading goes like this. In our scriptures, it is said that there are 4 kinds of horses: excellent ones, good ones, poor ones, and bad ones. The best horse will run slow and fast, right and left, at the driver's will, before it sees the shadow of the whip. The second best will run just as well as the first one does, just before the whip reaches its skin. The third one will run when it feels pain on its body. So you got to actually whip that horse. And then the fourth will run after the pain penetrates to the marrow of its bones. So clearly, you should not want to be the worst kind of horse because you've got pain in the marrow of your bones from the whip. And this is like from the failure of trying and failing over and over again in class, for example. In meditation, you sit and it's just like you're so bad at it that you can't even fathom how any human could be so bad at meditation. You're so unfocused and your mind wanders so much, and you've been doing it for years and you're just terrible at it, right? So this says, you can imagine how difficult it is for the fourth one to learn how to run. When we hear this story, almost all of us want to be the best horse. If it is impossible to be the best one, we want to be the second best. This is, I think, the usual understanding of the story and of Zen. You may think that when you sit in Zazen, you will find out whether you are one of the best horses or one of the worst ones. Here, however, there is a misunderstanding of Zen. If you think the aim of Zen practice is to train you to become one of the best horses, you have a big problem. This is not the right understanding. If you practice Zen in the right way, it does not matter whether you are the best horse or the worst one. When you consider the mercy of Buddha, how do you think Buddha will feel about the 4 kinds of horses? He will have more sympathy for the worst one than for the best one. When you are determined to practice Zazen with the great mind of Buddha, you will find the worst horse is the most valuable one. If you're in your very imperfections, you will find the basis the basis for your firm, way-seeking mind. Those who can sit perfectly physically usually take more time to obtain the true way of Zen, the actual feeling of Zen, the marrow of Zen. But those who find great difficulties in practicing Zen will find more meaning in it. So I think that sometimes the best horse may be the worst horse, and the worst horse can be the best one. So this plays out in the show Slow Horses because they end up like being the best and winning and all that stuff. Still no spoilers. But in our practice, I like to bring this up in Tai Chi a lot, but it's the same thing in Kung Fu and Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and whatever it is that you're doing, and for sure in meditation. Think of it this way. Let's say that you show up for your first jiu-jitsu class and you are beating everybody in your first class. You're tapping every single person that you roll with. They can't touch you. This is likely because you are very strong, big, You probably had some other kind of practice before. Maybe you wrestled before. You know, some people come in who have already practiced Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu before. And that must feel really nice for the first couple of practices, the first couple of classes. But then you start to get kind of bored. You're like, wait a minute, I'm already beating everybody. Like, what's the point in this? You're not really getting challenged. Now, I promise you that if you show up to class, we will find a way to challenge you. We'll find somebody, even if it's me, who will challenge you. But just take this as a hypothetical. You are the best. There's not really anywhere for you to go in that situation other than down. Now, you flip that. You show up and you are the worst. You lose to everybody. You tap constantly. As my Sifu always says, this is the sound of learning. They're getting you, you tap, right? Now, you have only one way to go. You can only get better. And with the right mindset, this is the best place to be because it's all upside. You can only get better. And it is likely that every single class, you're making some kind of significant improvements. Now, of course, we don't want to have the mindset where I have to be getting better every single class or I'm not happy and I quit. But it's nice to be getting better. It's better than the alternative. So when faced with these options, then it becomes kind of clear, actually, it's better to be the person in class who is struggling the most, because if I can get past this constant need to compare myself to everybody else, I can be making lots of improvement and really enjoy myself in that situation. It's the same thing in Zazen. It's the same thing in our sitting meditation practice. If you sit, and it's very easy for you to sit totally still, rock solid. There are no aches and pains. You're super flexible. Your posture is perfect. Then you have very little to gain from the challenge of sitting for a long time. It's not that challenging for you, physically at least. But I promise you, unless you've been sitting for a very long time, like in terms of years or lifetimes, you will be challenged by the actual meditative part of this. Just being able to control your monkey mind, to still the thoughts, to let go of the incessant wandering of your mind and just be totally present. That's going to be a challenge for pretty much anybody. Now, there are people who will sit for meditation and might have an advantage either from other, mental practices that they've done in the past, or maybe some people are just kind of naturally more focused, more easily able to let go of thoughts. Okay. You have less to gain out of your meditation practice, but still so much to gain. Now, you might sit, and this was my experience, and this is most people's experiences in the beginning of practice. You might sit the first couple of times and think like, hey, this is kind of nice. Maybe in the first couple of meditations, you'll start to really feel like you are calming your mind and getting to a place of peace, and you're able to concentrate better, focus on the breath. And then you'll start to notice that in everyday life. You'll start to recognize I'm more focused and calm when I do everything else that I do. That's great. You will inevitably hit some kind of wall. And so many people, myself included, have this experience within the first year of their practice of meditation, where you start to feel like you're backsliding, you're getting worse. And people say this to me all the time. They say, Sifu, I swear to you, I practice meditation every day. I'm getting worse at it. I don't know how it's happening, but I have more thoughts. I'm less focused. What's going on? The reality of this is almost certainly that you are getting better, but part of your experience of being more focused is that you're recognizing more thoughts than you did before. So let's say that you have 100 thoughts. Early in your practice, you're only noticing and letting go of 10 of them. And then as you get more and more focused, you start to recognize, 80, 90, 100 of those thoughts. Now it's like, wait a minute, I'm getting worse. You're not actually getting worse. You're getting better by recognizing the constant wandering of your mind. But this is the experience of the worst horse, is that I've got so much pain here, so many problems with my meditation. Shouldn't I just give up? And many people, many people in martial arts, in meditation, or in anything that is really difficult, a real challenge, many people, when presented with that, they run up against the first wall and they say, well, guess this wasn't for me, I quit. And I promise you this, very few things in life are certain, but if you quit, you will not get better at martial arts, meditation, or anything. So in our practice, we're almost reveling in that. I'm not saying that you need to purposefully go out of your way to make things more challenging, because the challenges will show up. But when they show up, you have two options in this opportunity. Option one is get fed up and give up, or greet this challenge and bring it into your practice and let it feed you. Another part of Zen Mind, Beginner's Mind, he talks about mind weeds. You're sitting and you have this thought that keeps coming back, and it's like a weed, it keeps growing back. And he says what you should do is dig up that weed and then bury it and let it feed the rest of your garden. I don't know if that's actually how weeds work. I feel like it might just grow back. But if you use it as sustenance for your practice, you use that to kind of inspire you to practice harder, to continue to practice and get the most out of it. With this kind of mindset, you can have a lot of natural talent, but still find some way to get better, or you can have no natural talent. You could be the worst horse and still continue to practice and get so much out of it. And in this way, you can be on the slow boat and continue to enjoy the journey, no matter how slow the journey and how long it takes. In fact, in some cases, you will find that the slower you go, the longer, and with a different kind of attitude, the more arduous the journey is, the better it is. So try to be on that slow boat. Be totally okay with being the worst horse. And when you sit in meditation tonight, when that thought comes up, and when I say that thought, I mean those 100 thoughts or those 1,000 thoughts, those incessant mind weeds that keep coming up. Instead of trying to force them away, that's the attitude of somebody who's used to being the best horse, or somebody who's used to being on the fast boat. It's not you, not tonight. Tonight you are the worst horse, you are on the slow boat, and when that mind weed comes up, instead of fighting against it, you accept it. You say, oh, this is all part of that journey. This is just another wave that I can just kind of enjoy on my slow boat ride into the infinite. Sit comfortably. I'll go over a little bit of posture and general ideas in meditation. So I like to sit in Seiza, but you can also sit cross-legged, whatever's comfortable for you. We're going to sit for about 15 minutes, so make sure you're in a place that you can do it comfortably. We are going to make sure that our knees are even with or below the hips. If your knees are sticking up, then your legs are going to fall asleep. Your hands are upturned at your hips. Unless you're sitting cross-legged and you can put them on your knees, that's okay too. Either one of these is fine if you're cross-legged, but you don't want to be slouching. So if the placement of your arms causes your shoulders to pull forward, you're going to have a bad posture in meditation. So in Seiza, for sure here, cross-legged knees or hips is fine. You can have your hands together or you can have them here. And you want your shoulders rolled back and relaxed. So I'm not rigid and tense, but I'm definitely not slouching. The chin is parallel to the ground. The crown of the head is raising up, so you have an elongated straight spine. And your eyes are closed. Close eyes, spine straight, eyes upturned to the point between your eyebrows. Relax and watch the breath. So if you have a difficult time finding that third eye position for your eyes, what you can do is open your eyes and look at something that's in the distance, that's like just above your head. And then you close your eyes again, and Your eyes should be naturally raised up. This is distinct from having your eyes crossed. If your eyes are crossed, you will get a headache and meditation will be much less enjoyable. So make sure that they're focused a little bit out in front of you and slightly raised up. This will help to associate the position with a raised consciousness. It will stop you from going to sleep and help you to focus your mind where you want it, up and in this moment on this breath. So from here, relax and watch the breath. So you feel the breath come in, feel the breath go out. When your mind wanders and you start to think, just let it go. If you have a thought that is continuing, it's recurring, and you're starting to feel resistance to it, you can just label it by saying in your mind, thought. There's no judgment, you're just recognizing that's a thought, and you just let it go. Set it aside and come back to the breath as many times as it takes.